I'm Luna, an astrologer and tarot reader of over 8 years, and I've had the joy of guiding over 1,000 clients on their personal astrological journeys. So today I'm going to be talking about Blake Lively. We're going to be taking a look at her transits, see what's going on in her life. Why is she being canceled? How is this whole thing with Justin possibly going to unfold? Are the transits in her favor? What's happening? And if you would like your own personalized astrology reading, you can head on over to my Etsy shop, linked in the description below. Currently running a 20% off New Year's sale. This is a limited time sale, so be sure to snag that before it's gone. So let's get into this. So I actually did take these transits a few days ago, so these are a little different. The moon is not in the sign at this time, and the nodes have already entered Pisces and Virgo, so we're just going to amend that. But overall, this chart is pretty accurate for where more or less the bigger planets, the slower planets are. Now, the main thing that's really hurting Blake right now, I want to tell you about, first off, the retrogrades that kind of started this whole thing. Back in August of 2024, when this entire debacle began, when It Ends With Us was launched or premiered, Mercury was retrograde right on top of her Sun and Mars conjunction. Now, the reason this matters is because, first off, she's heavily influenced by Mercury because she's a Virgo sun, and she has a Virgo stellium, and Virgo's ruled by Mercury. So Mercury's whatever Mercury's doing impacts her intensely. Now, Mercury retrograde itself deals with miscommunication, things not going the way that you wanted them to. And in the sign of Virgo, it can often lead to critiques or people being very critical of you. Now, the reason this kind of reached a whole other level of insanity is because it was right on top of her Sun-Mars conjunction. This means that the conversation was going to be about Blake pretty much making everything about herself, right? So Sun and Mars, this is someone who's very forceful. They have a very forceful, vibrant personality. They draw attention wherever they go. But in this situation, because Mercury was retrograde, because of the context of the movie and everything that was happening, it really painted her in a really negative light. And so she was being perceived as very pushy and mean girlish, right? Which, to be fair, with the Sun-Mars conjunction, she can have some mean girl energy. Although in Virgo, I don't think that she would ever be actually mean to people outright. I think that a lot of these interviews and stuff that are coming out kind of display a little bit of how her mean girl energy can manifest, which is more underhanded, backhanded compliments, or being kind of critical, but in a fake, nice way. And obviously they tore her to shreds. Now, that Mercury retrograde didn't just go from Virgo, it went into Leo. So it started off with people being what are you talking about on this campaign, this premiere? She's talking about her new hair care line, her florals, everything she did. It's me, 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 me. And people are where's the DV? What are you talking about? This is a DV film, right? Then Mercury enters Leo, retrogrades in Leo, and suddenly it's not about Blake Lively being weird in the It Ends With Us tour. It's about Blake Lively as a whole, right? All of a sudden it's, who is Blake Lively? Is Blake Lively a mean girl? Let's do some digging on Blake Lively. So it went beyond just a PR storm around the movie, and it became the PR storm of Blake Lively. And during that time, Mars was in Gemini, conjunct Jupiter, squaring all of this Virgo stuff and opposing Saturn. So there was a T-square in the chart, where not only did people really freaking not like her, she was getting her karma on something, Saturn opposing Virgo. And then this Mars-Jupiter conjunction was amplifying her image, and people were talking about her, Gemini, for all the wrong reasons with Chiron. And Chiron in the 11th house, everything that she's doing with Justin, it's born out of this wounding right here. Because Jupiter's been on her Chiron for months now, which means that she's been dwelling, trying to nurse her wounds. But instead of nursing her wounds privately, Gemini, she's trying to take the narrative back. The problem with this is, during Jupiter's transit on Chiron, what happened? A bunch of people who knew her, reporters even who knew her, started to leak Chiron in the 11th house, times in which they were wounded or, in her reign of fire, even if she didn't even realize it. Chiron and Gemini, people, when you're that famous on Mars conjunction, when you're that famous, people remember their interactions with you. Chiron and Gemini in the 11th house, I guarantee that interview that came out about her with the reporter, she probably doesn't even remember that. And she probably oh my God, I don't even know how that came up. I don't even remember that day, or I never thought that was a big deal. And her biggest fear with a Chiron in the 11th house in Gemini is for people to ostracize her and exile her from the it group, from the cool kids group, right? Chiron and Gemini in the 11th house is very high school. It's very like, I want to be cool. I want to be in the group. I want to be like the it girl. I want to be with the popular kids. And the popular kids to her is Hollywood, right? And she has this obsession with Scorpios, which is where her Pluto lies. She gains her power by associating herself with Scorpios. I noticed Justin has a Mars in Scorpio. Ryan has a Mars in Scorpio. Taylor Swift has a Mars in Scorpio. What do all three of these people have in common? They're actually incredibly powerful and creative in the ways in which they function in the industry. Ryan has built himself up. He's created an image for himself. And Taylor has risen to the top of her industry. And even Justin Baldoni, who's kind of an underdog in this industry, has managed to become a director, right? This really pokes at her fear, Chiron and Gemini, that she's not smart, that she doesn't actually have intelligence or talent, that people won't really talk about her unless she's associated with people who people talk about. And so Jupiter on Chiron is like all of the PR stuff that came out, like the conversation that was being had around Blake Lively was her biggest fear. Her biggest fear come to life. The crown has been taken from her head. And people are saying, like, what the hell, Blake? Like, what is happening, right? And people are ostracizing her. So guess what happens? Jupiter here in Gemini is making her act in ways that are inadvertently creating more of this wounding because Jupiter's retrograde. And guess what? When she filed that complaint against Justin, Mars was retrograde in Leo. What does that mean? Retrogrades, again, the way you think things are going to go is not the way that things go. Retrogrades means you think it's going to go that way. Curveball, it actually went this way. Mars is the planet of conflict, confrontation. So if you're going to start a conflict, don't start a conflict during a Mars retrograde. Because the people that you think are going to rally behind you, the way you think that victory is going to go in the opposite direction. And because it's in her sign, this is only amplified. Now it's not just Mercury. Now it's not just like we're talking and we're hating Blake. Like it's not just like the people are turning against her. Now she's in a legal battle, right? Like now it's not just something as simple as like a PR storm that she could have, gone into hiding for 2 years and come back and like people would have forgotten. Now she's gotten herself in a pickle that she can't get out of, right? Because now she actually had to file a lawsuit against Justin. I don't think that with Mars and Leo here, Leo is about grand displays. Think about Donald Trump. He has a Mars in Leo. He says a lot, but he doesn't really do a lot, right? Like he's a very performative, dramatic person, but he's not like actually very good in like a debate, for example. Like he's not actually confronting things. He's not actually doing that much. He's just creating a lot of fluff. And so with Mars and Leo, why did she only sell it to the New York Times? And it was just a complaint. It was literally like a letter to say that I'm going to file a lawsuit, right? So it wasn't meant to probably start a war. It was probably meant to intimidate. Mars and Leo in the ascendant. She probably thought, I'm Blake Lively. I have star power. I'm going to intimidate who? Sun in Aquarius, Justin Baldoni. I'm going to intimidate my opponent because Aquarius, he's the underdog in this situation. I have a team behind me. I have a star behind me. I've been in this industry for X amount of time. I'm just going to put this out and then it'll quietly go away because he will probably back down. No, that's not how it went at all. Mars is retrograde. And this is where we go into Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius, her opponents are going to rise in power. The underdog is going to rise in power. The underdog is going to have more power now because Pluto's entering in Aquarius than people who are established and liked. Hence Jennifer Lopez. Hence Blake Lively. Like all of this stuff that's happening with like celebrities and authorities. It's Pluto in Aquarius. It's about wanting to champion the underdog, wanting to champion the people's man or the people's woman. And so this is going against her, this Mars-Pluto opposition that was happening at the time when she put out this complaint. She was challenged, Pluto in Aquarius, in a way she probably didn't anticipate, and now she's in a worse position. Now, the next that's going on is that Jupiter is still in Gemini, and it's opposing her Saturn in Sagittarius. So this is like forcing her to grow through humility. It's humbling her. And then Saturn is also opposing her Virgo stellium, which is calling for her again to humble herself. Now, Saturn in Pisces is a sign that creates a lot of confusion and a lot of blurring of boundaries. And Saturn has been in Pisces the entire time that she's been making this movie. Saturn entered Pisces back in 2023, which I assume is around the time that they were probably filming this. And Saturn in Pisces opposing her Virgo, this is about her having to face reality. Whenever I think of Saturn in Pisces, I think of expectation versus reality. It's about like get your head down from the clouds. And opposing her Virgo, stellium, Virgo is a sign that can deal with like, not really seeing the bigger picture and getting stuck on the minutia of things that don't really matter. So Saturn here, if she had backed down, if she had just let this go, it probably would have died out. It would have dissipated. People would have probably forgotten, and she would have moved on and come back in a few years. But because Jupiter's been exacerbating her Chiron, it's been amplifying her wounding, amplifying her woe is me, and making her react in ways. I mean, she's been going through a double Chiron Jupiter aspect. Transit Jupiter on her Chiron and then transit Chiron on her Jupiter. This is like all of her biggest fears are coming true. All of her biggest fears are happening to force her to grow. And what lessons is she learning? Well, the North Node's in Aries, which she's going through her nodal return. Chiron's in Aries on her Jupiter. What does Aries have to do with? It has to do with being a little bit egotistical and asserting herself. But the problem here is it's ruled by her Mars conjunct her Sun, which is currently being opposed by Saturn, which means that the real lesson that she's learning is thicker skin, resilience, and thinking for herself. And I wonder if a lot of what's been happening is because she's in an echo chamber of yes men, of like, yeah, Blake, like, of course he made this. Of course he's the reason people don't like you. Of course he created a smear campaign. Of course you're going to win this legal battle. And she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, and she's like living a little into Lululand. And with Aries here, it's like, me, 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 me. And now she's getting a little bit of karma with Sun, Mars opposing Saturn of like humbling herself and realizing that the rules also apply to her. And kind of facing retaliation. Even with Virgo here, I don't think she's a mean person, really. I think she can have mean girl tendencies, like, inadvertently. And I think that she's realizing the impact that she's had on other people in a bigger way, especially with this Chiron in the 11th house. Like, I think, honestly, a lot of what's coming out about her and, like, all of this buzz, like, all of this gossip that's coming out about her, even from people in the industry, it's so mind-boggling to her, and I'm sure that she probably thought that this couldn't possibly be real, and it has to be Justin. Because here's the thing, when people have 7th house placements in your birth chart, they show you your shadow. He also has his Lilith in her 7th house. He is showing her her shadow, and she cannot believe her eyes. She probably thought a lot of the things people were saying were manufactured, because it's the first time in her life with Chiron and Gemini that she's actually hearing the other side of Blake. She'd probably only heard good things about her, like, yes, I'm so amazing. Yes, I'm so humble. And I don't even necessarily think this is malicious. I think that she truly has been sheltered. Like, she has a very sheltered energy to her. And so a lot of these transits are really forcing her to face reality in many ways, but also to realize she doesn't have as much pull as she once thought with Pluto and Aquarius. And this Jupiter Chiron, again, like, she's learning thicker skin. She's learning, like, people will say what they want to say. And the more you talk, the more ammunition you're giving. So if I was like her astrologer, I would say, I mean, she's in too deep at this point, but I would have told her to wait it out. I would have told her not to feed the fire, right? And to just let it dissipate. Because now she's tainting her image in the eyes of the public with her own words. Because it's one thing to hear he said, she said, but when it's her own account, like she's saying, oh, he did this to me, that feeds the flames, right? Which is this Jupiter in Gemini, which is like the talk. People are talking about you. You're the talk of the town, but in a negative way with the opposition to Saturn. And Uranus, it's like, it seems wild. It seems out of nowhere. All right, so those are the main transits she's kind of going through. North Node's entering Pisces in the 8th house. She's entering a period where she's going to really be dealing with legal battles and like money and financial stuff, which makes sense if she's heading into a lawsuit with Justin. This is going to be really drawn out, and it's going to be with Saturn too. So North Node Saturn, this is like legal battles, and it's opposing her Virgo. This doesn't look super great for her. I think if she wins, it would be one of those wins where it's like, it wasn't even worth the fight kind of vibe. Like, everybody lost. Like, nobody really wins. Right? So let's take a look. I'm going to pull a few cards on like her and like how this legal battle might, like, what's the energy around the legal battle at this time for her. We have the 5 of Cups. Interesting. Okay. Well, we have the Wheel of Fortune. And geez, the Ace of Cups. She's really emotional. Even Justice at the bottom. I think that she's unsure about how this would go, honestly. I think previously she thought that she could win Mars and Leo. Like, this will be easy, right? Like, I have pull. Five of Cups is like, ooh, regrets. I wish I hadn't done this. I wish I hadn't started this, right? The emotional toll of this, even if she were to win, would be devastating for her. She does not have thick skin. She's, even with all this Virgo, she's very, very sensitive to the criticisms of others. And then the Wheel of Fortune means that she feels like the legal battle is up in the air, could go either way. And it also has moved dramatically from what she thought was going to happen. Ace of Cups means she's overwhelmed. She's in over her head. She's definitely an emotional wreck. I'm not getting a lot on how this may play out. I think that I honestly feel as though she doesn't really know. She's not very sure which way it's going to go and how things may pan out for her. All right, so that's all I have for you guys on Blake. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.